There's a magnetic force that exists between a man and a woman that has nothing to do with physical touch, nothing to do with words, and everything to do with the invisible energy you carry. Most men think sexual tension is about what you do to her, but the truth is, it's about what you become for her. It's about the space you create in her mind, the curiosity you spark in her soul, and the mystery you maintain in your presence. This isn't about manipulation or games. This is about understanding the fundamental psychology of attraction and becoming the kind of man who doesn't have to try to create tension because he embodies it naturally. You see, sexual tension isn't created through aggressive advances or obvious flirtation. It's created through restraint, through the power of what you don't do, through the magnetism of a man who knows his worth so deeply that he doesn't need to prove it through touch. When you understand this principle, when you truly grasp the art of creating desire through distance and intrigue through restraint, you become irresistible not because you're trying to be, but because you're being authentically powerful. The first mistake most men make is thinking they need to escalate physically to create attraction. They rush to touch, to close the distance, to make their intentions obvious. But here's what they don't understand. The most powerful sexual tension exists in the space between you and her, in the anticipation of what might happen, not in what actually does happen. It's the electricity that builds when two people are aware of each other but haven't crossed that line yet. It's the magnetic pull that grows stronger the more it's resisted. Think about it this way. When you're hungry and there's food right in front of you, you eat it and the desire disappears. But when you're hungry and you can smell something delicious cooking in the kitchen, something you can't have yet, that's when the anticipation builds. That's when your desire intensifies. Sexual tension works the same way. It's not about satisfying her curiosity immediately. It's about creating a curiosity so strong that she can't stop thinking about you even when you're not there. The art of creating sexual tension without touch begins with your presence. Not your physical presence, but your energetic presence. There's a difference between being physically in the room and commanding the energy of the room. A man who creates sexual tension doesn't try to dominate conversations or be the loudest person there. He commands attention through his stillness, through his confidence, through the way he holds himself like he knows something everyone else is trying to figure out. Your presence should feel like a calm storm. Peaceful on the surface but with an undercurrent of power that she can sense but can't quite identify. This comes from inner confidence, from knowing yourself so completely that you don't need external validation to feel secure. When a woman is around a man like this, she feels both safe and excited, comfortable and intrigued. She knows she's in the presence of someone who has depth, someone who has layers she wants to explore. Eye contact is your first weapon in creating sexual tension, but not the kind of eye contact most men think. It's not staring, it's not trying to intimidate, it's not attempting to undress her with your eyes. Real powerful eye contact is about connection, about seeing her, about letting her know that in this moment, she has your complete attention. But here's the key, you give her that attention like it's a gift, not like you're desperate for hers in return. When you look at her like you're reading a book you find fascinating. Not hungry, not desperate, but genuinely interested in what you're discovering. Hold her gaze long enough for her to feel seen, but not so long that it becomes uncomfortable. Then, and this is crucial, be the first to look away. Not because you're uncomfortable, but because you're in control of the moment. This small act tells her subconsciously that you're not needy for her attention, that you're secure enough to break the connection yourself. The power of selective attention cannot be overstated. In a room full of people, don't be the man who's constantly looking at her, constantly trying to catch her eye. Instead, engage fully with other people, be genuinely present in other conversations, and then occasionally, naturally, let your attention drift to her. When your eyes meet, let there be a moment of recognition, a small smile, a subtle acknowledgement that says you see her, but then return to what you were doing. This selective attention creates something powerful in her mind. She starts to wonder why she only gets pieces of your attention when other people seem to have it so easily. She begins to question what she needs to do to earn more of your focus. Without even realizing it, she starts competing for something that felt freely given to others but feels earned when it comes to her. Your voice is another tool for creating sexual tension, but not in the way you might think. It's not about speaking in a deep, artificially seductive tone. It's about speaking with intention, with purpose, with the confidence of a man who believes his words have value. When you speak to her, speak slower than you normally would. Not dramatically slower, just deliberately paced. This forces her to pay attention, to lean in slightly, to focus on what you're saying rather than waiting for her turn to talk. Lower your voice slightly when you're speaking directly to her, not to a whisper, but just enough that she has to focus to hear you clearly. This creates an intimate bubble around your conversation, even in a crowded room. It makes her feel like what you're sharing is meant just for her, like there's a secret understanding between you that others aren't part of. But here's where most men go wrong with conversation. They try to impress her with their words, they over-explain, they share too much too soon. The key to creating sexual tension through conversation is restraint. Say less than you want to say. Let your words carry weight by making them scarce. When she asks you a question about yourself, give her a taste of the answer, but never the full story. For example, if she asks about your work, don't launch into a detailed explanation of everything you do. Give her the essence, something intriguing, and then redirect the conversation. Let her be the one who wants to know more. Let her be the one who follows up with more questions. This way, you're controlling the pace of revelation, and every small piece of information she gets feels like a privilege rather than something freely given. The concept of emotional unavailability, when used correctly, is incredibly powerful for creating sexual tension. This doesn't mean being cold or distant. It means being warm and engaging in the moment, but not being emotionally dependent on the interaction continuing. It means being fully present when you're with her, but not carrying that energy with you when you leave. Most men make the mistake of becoming emotionally invested too quickly. They start imagining futures, they start hoping for outcomes, they start needing the interaction to lead somewhere specific. This neediness leaks out in subtle ways, through body language, through the tone of voice, through the questions they ask. Women can sense this desperation, and it kills sexual tension immediately. Instead, approach every interaction like it's complete in itself. Don't go into conversations hoping they'll lead to phone numbers or dates. Go into them genuinely interested in the human being in front of you, curious about her perspective, engaged with her mind, but not attached to any particular outcome. This detachment paradoxically makes you more attractive because it makes your attention feel genuine rather than strategic. The power of mystery cannot be understated in creating sexual tension. But mystery doesn't mean being secretive or playing games. It means maintaining depth, having layers that can't be discovered in one conversation. It means being open about some things while keeping other things private, not because you're hiding them, but because intimacy is earned gradually. Share your passions, your interests, your perspectives, but don't share your insecurities, your neediness, your desperation for connection. Let her see your strength, your confidence, your depth, but keep your vulnerabilities for later, for when trust has been built, for when emotional intimacy has developed naturally. Most men think that being vulnerable immediately creates connection, but premature vulnerability actually destroys sexual tension. It makes you safe, predictable, non-threatening, and while these might be good qualities for a long-term relationship, they don't create the kind of electric attraction that makes a woman think about you when you're not there. Your body language speaks before you even open your mouth, and it continues speaking long after you stop talking. The way you carry yourself, the way you move through space, the way you position yourself in relation to her, all of these things communicate your level of confidence and your understanding of your own value. Stand tall, but not rigid. Move with purpose, but not urgency. When you're talking to her, don't lean in desperately trying to close the distance. Stand comfortably in your own space and let her come to you if she wants to hear you better. This subtle positioning tells her that you're comfortable with distance, that you're not desperate to be closer to her, that proximity is something that happens naturally, not something you're trying to force. Keep your movements slow and deliberate. Fast, nervous movements communicate anxiety and neediness. Slow, purposeful movements communicate confidence and control. When you reach for something, do it smoothly. When you turn to look at something, do it with intention. Every movement should feel like it's coming from a place of calm certainty rather than nervous energy. The space between you and her should feel intentional. Don't crowd her personal space, but don't keep yourself so far away that you seem uninterested. Find that sweet spot where you're close enough that she's aware of your presence, but far enough away that if she wants to be closer, she has to make that choice. This gives her the power to control the physical distance while you maintain the emotional distance. One of the most powerful techniques for creating sexual tension is the strategic use of absence. This doesn't mean disappearing randomly or playing hard to get in an obvious way. It means having a life so full and purposeful that your time feels valuable, that access to you feels earned rather than assumed. Don't be available every time she wants to talk. Not because you're playing games, but because you genuinely have other priorities, other interests, other commitments that matter to you. When you do give her your time and attention, it should feel special because it's not something she can take for granted. This scarcity principle works because it makes her value your presence more when you are there. If you're always available, always ready to drop everything for her, your attention becomes commonplace. But if your attention is something that comes and goes based on your own schedule and priorities, it becomes something she starts to anticipate and appreciate. The key is that your absence should feel natural, not manufactured. Don't cancel plans just to seem busy. Instead, actually be busy with things that matter to you. Build a life so compelling that being part of it feels like an opportunity rather than something you're giving away freely to anyone who shows interest. Sexual tension also lives in the realm of the unspoken. It's in the things you don't say, the moves you don't make, the lines you don't cross. There's incredible power and restraint in being the man who could escalate but chooses not to, who could make a move but decides to wait, who could push the interaction forward but allows it to develop naturally. This restraint should never come from fear or insecurity. It should come from confidence, from knowing that you don't need to rush anything because you trust in your ability to create and maintain attraction over time. It should come from understanding that the anticipation of something happening is often more powerful than the thing actually happening. When there's a moment that could lead to physical contact, a moment where escalation would be natural, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is acknowledge the moment and then step back. Not rejection, not disinterest, but conscious choice. This tells her that you're aware of the chemistry between you, but you're not driven by it. You're in control of it. The art of teasing is crucial for sexual tension, but it must be done with intelligence and respect. This isn't about making fun of her or putting her down. It's about playful banter that creates a dynamic where you're both enjoying the verbal dance, where there's challenge and humor and a slight edge that keeps things interesting. Good teasing comes from observation, from noticing little things about her and commenting on them in a way that's both accurate and amusing. It shows that you're paying attention, but it also shows that you're not intimidated by her. You see her as a person, with quirks and characteristics that you find endearing enough to comment on playfully. The key to effective teasing is that it should make her laugh, even if she protests. It should be something she can tease you back about. It should create a dynamic where you're both playing verbal tennis, where the energy between you builds with each exchange. This kind of playful interaction creates connection while maintaining the tension that comes from not knowing exactly where things are headed. Your emotional state throughout all of this is crucial. You cannot create genuine sexual tension if you're coming from a place of neediness, desperation, or insecurity. The tension you create will only be as strong as the foundation of confidence and self-worth that you're building it on. This means doing the internal work to become a man who genuinely doesn't need validation from women to feel good about himself. It means building a life you're excited about, pursuing goals that matter to you, developing skills and interests that make you feel fulfilled independent of romantic success. When you're interacting with her, your emotional state should be one of curious enjoyment rather than desperate hoping. You should be genuinely interested in who she is as a person, entertained by the interaction itself, pleased by the connection you're creating, but not dependent on it continuing or leading anywhere specific. This emotional independence is what allows you to create real sexual tension because it means you're not trying to get something from her. Instead, you're offering something to her, the experience of being around a man who is complete in himself but generous with his attention when he chooses to give it. The timing of everything you do is critical. Sexual tension builds in waves, and knowing when to advance and when to retreat, when to be present and when to create space, when to engage and when to withdraw. This timing separates the men who create lasting attraction from those who kill it through poor calibration. Pay attention to her responses, not just her words, but her body language, her energy, her engagement level. When she's leaning in, engaged, asking questions, that's when you can afford to pull back slightly, creating space that makes her want to close. When she seems distracted or distant, that's when you might offer a bit more attention, but never desperately, always from a place of choice rather than need. The goal is to create a rhythm where she's always slightly more invested in the interaction than you are, where she's always leaning in slightly more than you're leaning out. This doesn't mean being cold or unresponsive. It means being calibrated, being aware, being strategic about how you use your energy and attention. Remember that sexual tension is not something you do to someone, it's something you create with someone. The best sexual tension feels mutual, feels collaborative, feels like something you're both participating in creating. She should feel like an active participant, not a passive recipient of your techniques. This means being responsive to her as well as being someone she responds to. It means adjusting your approach based on who she is as an individual, what she responds to, what makes her come alive. Some women respond to intellectual challenge, others to emotional depth, others to playful humor. The key is learning to read her and adapt while never losing your core sense of self. Throughout all of this, maintain your authenticity. Sexual tension created through genuine confidence and self-knowledge will always be more powerful than tension created through manipulation or techniques alone. The goal is not to become someone different, but to become the most attractive version of who you already are. This means identifying your natural strengths and learning to leverage them. If you're naturally intellectual, use that. If you're naturally humorous, use that. If you're naturally intense, use that. The key is learning to express these qualities in ways that create intrigue and attraction rather than overwhelming or boring her. The most powerful sexual tension comes from the combination of accessibility and mystery, warmth and challenge, presence and independence. You want to be someone she feels comfortable with but also someone she feels she hasn't fully figured out yet. You want to be someone she enjoys being around but also someone she thinks about when you're not there. This balance is what creates the kind of attraction that leads to lasting relationships rather than just momentary interest. It's what makes a woman not just attracted to you physically, but intrigued by you mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. It's what creates the kind of connection that goes beyond surface-level chemistry. As you practice these principles, remember that the goal is not to manipulate or control, but to become genuinely attractive. True sexual tension comes from being a high-value man who has options but chooses to spend his time with her, who could have anyone but is genuinely interested in her specifically, who is complete in himself but open to sharing that completeness with someone worthy of it. The most unforgettable sexual tension comes from restraint born of strength rather than fear, from confidence rather than arrogance, from choice rather than desperation. When you master these principles, you don't just create sexual tension, you become the kind of man women can't stop thinking about, can't quite figure out, and definitely don't want to lose. Brother, if you've been relying on physical escalation to create attraction, if you've been trying to force chemistry through obvious moves and desperate advances, this is your wake-up call. Real sexual tension is subtle, sophisticated, and incredibly powerful when done right. It's about becoming irresistible through who you are, not what you do. Start practicing these principles today. Notice how different your interactions become when you focus on being rather than doing, when you create space rather than trying to eliminate it, when you trust in your attractiveness rather than trying to prove it. Because when you master the art of creating sexual tension without touch, you become magnetic in a way that no technique or trick could ever make you. The woman who experiences this kind of tension with you won't just be attracted to your body or impressed by your moves. She'll be captivated by your mind, intrigued by your depth, and driven crazy by the mystery of who you really are underneath it all. And that, my friend, is the kind of attraction that creates lasting passion and genuine connection. If this message resonated with your soul, don't just watch and forget. Take action. Like this video, comment below with your biggest insight, and subscribe for more real, unfiltered wisdom about becoming the kind of man women can't resist. Because here, we don't chase attraction. We become it.